Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Garrett. All in favor? Aye. I need certification of executive session. Mr. Parsons?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chairman, I move to certify that to the best of our knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements, and only such public business matters that were identified in the motion to go into executive session were heard, discussed, or considered in the executive session.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Mr. Sacagawea?
Yes.
Mr. Bostic?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Parsons?
Yes.
And Ms. Garrett? Yes. And myself, yes. I would like for us to stand for invocation, pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Vincent, would you care to give us
Let us pray. Oh Lord my God, I thank you for this day that you have created. And truly rejoice in this fasting. I thank you we live in a free country that allows us to gather together to battle for I pray for so many fellow citizens that come out today to care about the future and welfare of the school, students, teachers, and staff. Lord, your word gives us many examples to live by. Lord, we ask for the wisdom of Solomon, the faith of Daniel in the lion's den, the hope of Moses in the wilderness, the courage of David in the faces of John, the steadfastness of the Apostle Paul, and the love of Jesus Christ. And it is in the precious name of Jesus we pray. Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
We have one adjustment dealing with employee A, Madam Chair, and I believe we've taken care of that in the agenda under action items. Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We need to. I'll take a motion that we approve the amended agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Takes us down to the approval of our minutes of June 3rd.
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bostic. Do I
I
have a
second that,
second?
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sacagawea. All in favor?
Aye.
Also, we need to approve the minutes of our special call meeting. I think that was June 24th.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bostic. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Is that Mr. Ball?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. All in favor? Aye. Recognitions for this evening?
Madam Chair, we have no recognitions for this afternoon.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Ready for the delegations on the agenda?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a public comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Bostic.
All speakers addressing the board shall state their name and address. Each speaker shall be limited to 3 minutes. All members of the audience shall be respectful when a speaker has the floor. If the individual is deprived, they shall be called out of order by the chair. If the speaker, after being called out of order, continues to be disruptive, the chair will direct the individual be removed from the meeting by Russell County Police Department, and anyone who wishes to address the board will be given an opportunity.
Okay. Do I have a motion that we accept this?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Garrett. All in favor? Aye. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for coming this evening. Also, that's starting out. And we'll rank our first, Beth Carter. Would you please come to our podium, please?
So I came here today as a person who stood out at Lebanon High School. If you don't believe me, you can look around this room right now. Fortunately, I was never bullied, but I had a front row seat to the severity of the bullying that goes on toward our LGBTQ plus youth. My best friend is a gay man who went to Russell County schools from first grade through his senior year. The bullying began in the fourth grade, and by the time he reached eighth grade, it was relentless. They urinated on him in the bathroom, they threw him down the hall, they beat him, they humiliated him throughout his entire day, and all these moments were reported and recorded between the school years of 1998 and 2002. And what he was told was he needed to get over it, he needed to move past it. He's so full of scars and stitches because everybody really cared what he did with his personal time and his personal body. I was a kid and I couldn't be a voice. Trans people don't assault people in bathrooms. They are assaulted in bathrooms. They are willing to risk their lives just to go to the bathroom. My friend and his parents reported this abuse consistently, and he was told to ignore it, and he couldn't. So he cut himself, and then he found drugs, hard drugs, real hard drugs, and that's why he's not here today. He's had so many stitches and burns and scars all over his body because all he was trying to do was go to school all day long. A teacher stepped over him. A group of gentlemen, some of which in this room, threw him down a hall, and the teacher stepped over him because it didn't matter, because he's less than. No one has the right to decide who is less than. No one. All they want to do is go to the bathroom. That's not an unreasonable request for anybody to go to the bathroom peacefully. And they know they're going to walk into this bathroom and maybe get the crap beat out of them. But they want to go to the friggin' bathroom. That's not too much to ask. These kids need a safe haven. If everybody in the world felt exactly the same way, then these kids don't have a safe haven at home either. So they don't have a safe haven at school and they don't have a safe haven at home. So where do they go? What do they do? Who cares at all? I just want to know who. They need the support. They deserve the support. It's hard to be a kid. They need to have a safe place in the bathroom, in the classroom, in the home, in the street. Stop treating these kids like they're predators and start really educating yourself about what this is and what this is about. It's not about anything other than peace. At all. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Christian. Yes, I overlooked that, and I apologize. Beth, where are you from?
I live in Lebanon, I live in Fort Worth.
Thank you so much. Beth was from Fort Farm, Lebanon. Thank you, Beth.
Good afternoon, school board members. I'll be here. I'm Morris Christian. I'm from the Lebanon area. I am the board of supervisors, member at large, Russell County, represent about 28,000 people. I'm here to let them know that I do not support this transgender bathroom system. I feel like it is unconstitutional, immoral, and ungodly, and if implemented, we're going to have a lot of parents with all their children out of our system. And by doing so, that's going to reduce the revenue coming in, and then it's going to reduce the number of personnel that the school system is going to need. So that's reduction in employment of teachers and other staff members. So really, to me, why should we rate something that has been in existence, the bathroom system been in existence for many, many years, to just to try to please a few that appear to me like have a political agenda. So think and think hard before the final decision made, because we are a nation under God. We are a nation. Here in the Bible Belt, I know there's some counties, some of Virginia, they've done approve this, but that doesn't mean that Russell County has got to follow that pattern. Let's have
Thank you, Mr. Christian. I would like to ask Crystal Presley, please come forward.
I live in Abingdon from Honaker. Good evening. My name is Crystal Tribbett Presley, and I grew up in Honaker for the first 18 years of my life. I have a PhD in education and have been a public school teacher or instructional coach for the past 21 years. Tonight I'm speaking not only to school board members, but to the entire community of Russell County. We are not here tonight because any of us has the ability to sway this school board one way or the other. The law is a mandate. It's already been written. These mandates that ensure the safety and well-being of transgender students are the law. They've already been passed. Tonight's conversation is one about deeply ingrained religious beliefs, of whether you have the freedom to discriminate against transgender and or LGBT people because of your evangelical beliefs. You do not. When pastors and community members say that perhaps these students need their own separate school, when they say that they didn't raise their kids to accept these children as normal, or to have pride in what is sinful, this is the message they are sending to already vulnerable and marginalized people. You do not belong here. You need to be afraid of us. You are not safe here. We are coming for you. And this community is not just sending this message to LGBTQ people. It is sending this message to children, Black and brown people, women, the disabled, immigrants, and every other disenfranchised population. Are you someone who protects the hurting and vulnerable people from harm? Or are you a stone thrower? There is no middle ground. This area is changing. People like me have begun to stay or to move back because we are reclaiming our place here in these majestic mountains. It's hard to talk about this area without talking about religion, for it and the churches we attend are so deeply ingrained within our culture. But religion, and especially one that promotes fear and negativity towards certain people, has no place in our tax-funded public schools. If you want a religious education for your children, I've been in education, public education, for 21 years. It is your right and it is your responsibility to enroll your child in a Christian school. It took me many years, but I finally realized religion isn't God. Church isn't even God. I'm not convinced that God lives in pastors that preach rhetoric that make families and communities afraid to love each other. Nor am I convinced that God resides in churches that reject and disenfranchise the most vulnerable among them. Your young people are leaving your churches in droves because they are searching for kindness, love, and acceptance for all people. LGBT students, and especially transgender students, there is a place for you here. You are seen.
Thank you. Ever on.
We're being so respectful. We really don't need to boo. We didn't boo their speaker.
Excuse me, please. We will go back to just what was read before we started to hear the public speakers. We ask that everybody respect everyone who is at the podium, be quiet so that they can be heard, and you'll have your time. Please try to refrain from interrupting because it takes time away from their minutes that they had to speak. So I would ask the next speaker, Everett Arms, to come forward, please.
My name is Everett Arms, and I'm from South Creek, Virginia. Some of you, however, used to know me by a much different name, because I am transgender. And I'm here with you today to share my story in the hope of educating you and ending the stigma that paints gender nonconforming individuals as predators. I introduced myself the way I did because even though I knew exactly who I was at merely the age of 10, I never came out in school. I never came out because I was petrified of receiving the exact reaction that we are seeing here today. You may wonder why I'm speaking on it now. Well, back then, I didn't have a voice. It was stripped away from me by those like Tony Bush and Rita Honecker, who introduced living in the Bible Belt as an excuse to defend their failure to reprimand students who harassed me every single day. But it's not about me now. It's about the children that are currently being taught that they must also suffer in silence. It's about the children who are being ostracized and criminalized for simply being who they are. Most, if not all of you who are against the bathroom policy, argue that adopting it will lead to a substantial increase in sexual assault incidents. It's actually quite the opposite. A study carried out by the School of Public Health at Harvard University concluded that 36% of just 3,600 transgender students with restricted access to restrooms and changing facilities were reported experiencing some form of sexual assault within the span of just 12 months. Even without this data, your proposed arguments against these policies are purely moot. Last time I checked, there is no security protocol for entering public restrooms. If a sexual predator is set on entering a bathroom to assault your child, it's going to happen no matter what policies are or aren't in place. As for those of you who are concerned with the policy that protects certain student information from parents, such as pronoun changes, that clearly shows that your only angle is control and that you know your child would not feel safe in the least bit to share that information with you in the first place. So where does the problem truly lie? When are all of you going to drop the lame excuses and finally admit that you are blatantly transphobic? I could go on all day providing statistics and scientific evidence, but unfortunately, those in our community who are so passionate about the hate that they derive from complete and utter misinformation more than likely aren't willing to listen. So in conclusion, I hope that you can excuse my less than formal parting. Due to the blatant neglect from the school system, I almost didn't make it to my graduation day alive. So I will be damned if one more queer child in this community goes unheard.
Our next speaker, Desmond Goodson.
Good evening,
currently live in Oakwood. And as a community member, I would like to speak with you regarding the conversation surrounding Senate Bill 161, or this transgender inclusion. First, a common thing that I keep hearing, God, specifically the Judeo-Christian God Yahweh, should be put first into our schools. There are several private schools that offer religious, specifically Christian focus. However, these are private. And the difference between private versus public schools is that the United States Constitution stipulates a separation between church and state. That is to say that religion is not, thank you, that is not to say that religion is not a huge part of our lives, because for many it is. The concept of a separate church and state reinforces the legal right of a free people to freely live their faith, even in public, without a fear of government persecution. Free exercise means you have a faith and you can live it. Yet that freedom comes with the responsibility to allow others to do the same, perhaps especially with those who have religions different than our own. If someone's objections to the transgender inclusion bill are grounded in their own religious beliefs governing public life, that is a violation of the intention of our Constitution. Second, I would like to address sexual assault in restrooms. On multiple occasions, I keep hearing this misconception that trans people are predators when they are using the restroom. If anything, trans people are more likely to experience assault in restrooms than that of their counterparts. As Everett mentioned already, in 2019, PhD Harvard candidate Gabe Murchison, in one of the largest studies of its kind, looked at over 3,500 cases of transgender adolescents. The research found that over 19% of transgender females and 27% males have been sexually assaulted in 2019, standing next to the national average, which is about 10%. The same study found that those who were not allowed to use their affirming gender restroom was more at risk for sexual assault. That percentage for transgender girls goes up to a whopping almost 50%. If anything, allowing transgender people to use their affirming restroom would save them from assault by others. Finally, I keep seeing this movement called Protect Every Child. You know what? I agree. Trans people are more likely to deal with harassment, body dysmorphia, anxiety, and depression. This leads to higher rates of students not doing well in school and higher rates of suicide for trans teens. If you really want to protect all kids, then our trans youth deserve to have an open and inclusive environment. In conclusion, to protect our trans youth and to follow the guideline of the Constitution, I ask that the school board comply with Senate Bill 161 and that we show a bit more kindness to trans folk. Russell County is not above state or national law and would protect our trans lives while they receive their educations. Thank you, and Trans Lives Matters.
Madison Road.
My name is Madison Rowe. I am from Duffield. Good evening, everyone. My name is Madison Rowe, and I'm 21 years old. Currently, I'm taking a Bachelor of Arts in History and Government at the University of Virginia at Wise. Tonight, I will be speaking from my perspective as an operating trans man. I do not tell the stories to inflame your hearts or feather hate against my own, or for the purpose of naming my opposition. Instead, the story I tell you comes from the heart, and its purpose is to create empathy. When I was 14, I became homeless after involuntarily coming out. This occurred when my stepfather learned of my bisexual orientation. Unfortunately, this experience is common, and 43% of LGBTQIA youth experience homelessness after coming out. Fortunately, my grandmother allowed me to couch surf until my mother and I could find a permanent property. However, continued harassment from my stepfather caused us to seek a home further away. In 2015, we relocated to Castlewood. After overcoming the uncertainty of homelessness and escaping my abuser, I began to grapple with my previous trauma. Once again, this is a common experience among LGBTQIA youth, and 30% experience physical, emotional, or sexual abuse at home due to their sexual orientation or gender identity. For 2 years, I processed my emotional abuse in the quiet of Castlewood. I slowly began to feel comfortable again in my bisexual identity and slowly began to piece together my repressed gender identity. Am I no longer offered those same luxuries of safety and healing now that I return as a non-binary transgender man? Especially when those were guaranteed for passage of the Virginia Values Act, Senate Bill 1868, Gavin Greenberg versus Lancaster County School Board, and the extension of Title IX to protect gender identity and sexual orientation, to name a few. You all have the choice to make Russell County safe for all of its community members or to further isolate it. Make the right way.
Sarah Hunmaker. Sarah Hunmaker. Brad Hutchison. Brad Hutchison. Regina. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was.
Up to the back. Thank you.
All right. Members of the school board, Dr. Brown, and stakeholders. My name is Brad Hutchinson, and I'm here to speak as the local commissioner for the state organization, the Fitz-Turner Commission, for Human and Civil Rights. When a state official heard I was going to speak at this meeting, I was told I should bring backup. Yet, here I am without backup, speaking in support of trans youth and the state guidelines for the treatment of schools. I refuse to believe the people of Russell County are irrational and violent. I truly believe that you genuinely want the best for the children of your county. I watched the June school board meeting and noticed how trans children were demonized by the majority of the adults who spoke during public comment. As you know, speech that demonizes a group turns innocent members of the group, in this case children, into monsters, which makes it acceptable to hate them. This kind of speech turns trans children into predators who are plotting to sexually assault their schoolmates, or cheaters who are scheming to have an unfair advantage in athletic competitions. Students cannot put on clothing that signifies the opposite sex one day and use the bathroom because they want to get a cheap thrill. The plan assumes that the student has stated their gender and has been consistent with that identification. Another thing to consider is that there have been no reported cases of a trans person assaulting someone in a restroom. None. However, 12% of transgender people were verbally harassed in public restrooms within the previous year, and 2% were physically attacked. The other main area of concern has been with the VHSL plan for trans athletes, which states that once a trans student has expressed an interest in participating in a sport, they must produce documentation. This includes, and I quote, 2 letters which affirm the actions, attitudes, dress, and manners demonstrate the student's consistent gender identification and expression, and written verification from a doctor, psychiatrist, or psychologist of the student's consistent gender identification and expression. There are additional requirements, but I want to point out that a capricious whim is not what these policies concern. They concern a consistent identity over time. I'm sure you've heard the statistics for attempted and successful suicide among trans youth. Just to refresh your memory, a survey published in the journal Pediatrics found that teens surveyed, more than half of the transgendered males and 29.9% of the transgender females reported attempting suicide at least once during their teen years. Demonizing these children, assuming that they're sex offenders and cheaters, will contribute to local suicides. Even if a transgender student does not attempt suicide, this demonization will significantly damage the child. If you continue to attack trans children in the manner I witnessed in the videos, you're sacrificing them, making them collateral damage in a culture war based on misinformation and misplaced fear. If you continue to demonize these children, you are the cause of their misery. Thank you.
Regina Osborne.
Hello, my name is Regina Osborne. I live in Belfast. Ladies and gentlemen of the school board, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I come here not as a parent, but as a concerned citizen of the county I have called home for most of my life. Let me begin with an analogy, if I may. Imagine, if you will, that you decide at the last minute to attend a baseball game. Say, for example, you're a huge fan of the St. Louis Cardinals, and you purchase your ticket, find your way to your seat, and discover that you were surrounded by fans of the opposing team, say the Chicago Cubs. You're heckled, prodded, and made to feel entirely uncomfortable for the duration of the game. What would you want to do? You'd want to find a different seat where you felt more comfortable, safe, and able to cheer for the Cardinals without being ridiculed at every turn. You would want to go somewhere that you felt comfortable being yourself. At the end of the day, that is all we are asking for regarding the right for a transgender student to use the bathroom that he or she feels more comfortable using. Minnesota was the first state to enact a transgender inclusive non-discrimination law 46 years ago, in 1975. I have a feeling that that's news to most of you here this evening. You didn't know the Minneapolis transgender inclusive non-discrimination law, a law older than several of us here, even existed because there have been no issues since the law was enacted. The Minneapolis Police Department said that fears about sexual assault are not even remotely a problem. And the notion of men posing as transgender women to enter women's restrooms to commit sex crimes, quote, sounds a little silly. The unfortunate truth is that there will be no easy answer as long as there are those of you on the board that so egregiously air your bias. However, the fact remains that there is no connection between accommodation non-discrimination laws and an increase in assaults in a public restroom. While we are focused on hypothetical concerns of violence, the frightening reality is that in 2020, 52% of young transgender and non-binary people seriously considered suicide. If the goal truly is to protect all children, then let's seriously protect all children from themselves and each other. Instead of choosing to disenfranchise an entire group of people for simply wanting to feel safe, how about we address the issue of bullying that has run rampant in our schools for time out of mind? Years ago, when I was in school, I was made fun of relentlessly for simply having a pro-girl power slogan written on my backpack in a time when girl power was a big part of pop culture. I would never have dared to be my authentic self. As a matter of fact, it has taken me 21 years to publicly admit that I am bisexual, and that moment is right now. In closing, I hope to encourage those within the sound of my voice that are part of the LGBT community to find the strength and confidence to always be your authentic self. I hope to be an example of courage, and I hope that you understand, while our voices may not always be the loudest, we are here, and we are fighting for you today and always. Thank you.
Brandon Moore.
Okay, so my name's Brandon Ford. I'm from Big Moccasin. And I had a speech written up here, but it would have been well over 4 minutes, and y'all wouldn't give anybody time to actually speak. So when I hear this protect all children thing, it's like, heck yeah, y'all are actually going to take some time to, do something about bullying. I was a bullied kid. I used to be held down on Oak Grove Elementary's playground every day, and have mulch shoved down my throat. Shoved down my throat. And when my mama, who raised me, went to the principal and to the school board, you know what they said? Kids will be kids. Boys will be boys. And we have heard that for years. These children, they just want a place to use the restroom without being people infringing on their privacy. It's real simple in my opinion, You take out the urinals, you put in stalls. Nobody's going to be looking up under the stall, kick them in the face if they are. But, here's the thing. For states where this is already a law, we haven't seen y'all's alleged hypothetical situations that transgender kids or straight people are coming up and sexually assaulting your daughters. Because here's the thing. Those little stick figures, they're not stopping it if it was going to happen anyway. Now, right here in my hand tells me something that none of y'all are even thinking about. You think it's transgender kids that are the threat to your kids. 27 registered sex offenders live within 5 minutes of your schools. The state of Virginia allows them to live within 501 feet of your schools. These are tier 3 registered sex offenders, crimes against children, one of which was a preacher of all things. Now, I don't see any of you going to the Virginia legislature and trying to change that law. I don't see it. But here's the thing. I've seen some absolutely heinous things said by some people here in this very room. I want to read them. It's not okay for them to try to push these types of people down normal people and children's throats. It is not normal. God have mercy on this messed up world. They can use the bathroom at the mental health hospital. Disgusting, they're human as well, is what the person replied. No, they're not. So they're not human? What are they? Now, this one was said by a very prominent member of the community. How are we supposed to be nice people anymore with this new age of weirdos? I walked by It this morning and was trying to think of something nice to say, and all I could come up with was, I bet she's a nice young man. These are children that you are laughing about. These are children. These are children. You understand that, right? Children. You are bullies when you talk like this. If you can hear these things and you still think those types of things are okay, that bullying children is okay, especially as an adult, then you need help. That's all I've come to say here today. Thank you for your time, and I'll pray for every single one of you because y'all definitely need it.
Kimberly Ratliff. Kimberly Ratliff. Okay. Sophia Stevens. Did I get your name right? Stephen Arms.
My name is Stephen Arms, and I live in Lebanon. And I have a few brief clarifications to make to this board and all those in attendance here today. Number one is that the freedom of religion afforded to us by the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution means just that. Freedom of religion, not freedom to only Christianity. Number two, the separation of church and state is a two-way street. Not only does it protect the church from interference by the state, but it also protects the state from interference from the church. Number three, predators are all around us. The notion that these policies designed to protect students that identify as transgender will somehow subject your child to be prey is misinformed and quite frankly ignorant. We need to worry about what's going on inside of our local schools. The continued oversight and lack of due diligence demonstrated by this board is the biggest threat that Russell County children have. I have in my possession arrest records and witness statements and an active protective order, all of which are a matter of public record filed with the Russell County Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court that were issued against a high-ranking member of this school board. These protective orders were issued under a classification of family abuse. The member in question was arrested for stalking and reasonable fear of death / assault, a Class 1 misdemeanor. According to witness statements, this board member also used a Russell County government vehicle during the commission of this crime. Not to mention that this crime took place on St. Paul Elementary School property in Wise County, Virginia. The arrest was issued on January the 15th, 2020, 3 months after this election. Why did this school board not launch an internal investigation on that? Why was it swept under a rug? It was this exact same type of oversight that led to over 100 instances of sexual assault committed by a custodian at Lebanon Elementary School a few years ago. Russell County Schools ignored all of the red flags and allowed that abuse to reach the level that it did. It's on the school system's hands. Everyone here today is concerned for the wrong reason. Transgender people are not predators. There are plenty of viable solutions to this issue, all of which require funding. This county is going to have to stop pouring money into school sports programs and paying the gas bill for stalking and allocate some funds to provide our children with a safe and all-inclusive environment. Now, if any one of you would like to see these court records that I've referenced, I'll gladly let you look over them today. Thank y'all. You have a good day, and thank you for your time.
Lindsay Honecker.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Honecker and I live in Linden. I'd like to thank the chair and board for allowing me to speak here today. Since learning about these discussions, we've had a lot of long days and nights in my house. It has often seemed that nearly all of our conversations have been encompassed by these issues. It didn't take long for me to start feeling discouraged. Transgender students don't just have a couple of draining weeks that calm down after a school board meeting. Their entire existence can be draining. They don't get the opportunity to catch their breath. Therefore, my purpose here today is not to try and convince the audience or the board of anything. My purpose is to let the transgender students of Southwest Virginia know that they are respected and loved. I'm here to promise that as long as I have blood in my veins and air in my lungs, I will stand by you. Folks are concerned about these policies not being funded, but it costs exactly $0 to be a kind human being. I've heard several comments about teenage hormones saying that kids will be kids and joking about how trying to look up skirts is normal behavior. These types of statements are not only morally wrong, but they are downright disgusting. None of these claims are excuses for inappropriate behavior. Teach your kids to be respectful regardless of their hormones. If you want to lead your children away from sin, teach them that a bathroom is made for using the toilet and nothing else. It's not fair to punish an entire group of people because you are afraid of what doors this could open. If any student is trying to do anything that is less than respectful, it is the responsibility of teachers, administrators, and parents to make sure that kind of behavior is stopped. People also talk about this opening the door to bullying without realizing that the floodgates of hatred have been wide open in Southwest Virginia for a very long time. This is neither a political nor a religious issue. It is simply a matter of following federal and state laws by implementing anti-discrimination policies. Growth in the realm of education, however, will remain at a standstill until the students of Russell County get the care and respect that they deserve. I would also like to touch on critical race theory. Critical race theory is going to teach students that even though God created everyone as equals, man did not treat everyone that way. And if the youth of our nation do not take a look at the long violent history that certain groups of God's children have experienced, history will repeat itself. As I wrap things up, I'd like to discuss innocence. People have speculated that delving into some of these seemingly difficult discussions about discrimination will somehow rob children of their innocence. Innocence is not lost when a child is taught how to respect another human being. My innocence was not lost when I went through puberty or relationships. My innocence was not lost when I moved away or when I went to college. It was not lost when I served in the United States Air Force as a network intelligence analyst and assisted our nation's finest as they eliminated the true evils of this world. Despite all of the ways it still haunts me, that's not what took my innocence. My innocence was lost when I became an adult and found that a lot of Christians in this world preach the Word of God but do not follow it. As you perform the audit mentioned in the guidance, I encourage each of you to look within It's not just being asked that you open the bathrooms or your curriculums, it's asking that teachers, administrators, and members of the community open their minds and their hearts to people who may be a little different than they are.
Lynn Hess.
We're going to change the tune just a little bit here now. I have here, I wanted to let you know right off the bat that I want to let you know where most of your pastors in your community stand. I've got 21 churches signed up here that says we're united together against this Transgender Act. We will stand together against it, and private schools will be opened if it's passed. Another point I want to make is a correction to almost every speech that I've heard already here tonight. We do not hate transgender people.
Let him speak.
I appreciate the reclaiming of my time. Like I've heard that before. We do not hate the transgender people. We do not hate homosexual people. We do not judge them. God will judge them. We hate the sin that they live. And that is the problem that we have in the community today, that this is trying to be pushed on all of our children. Our children are godly children raised in godly homes and godly churches. And is it better to serve or obey man, or is it better to obey God? That's the question you must ask yourself here tonight. Let's understand what a transgender is to start with. A transgender is denoting or relating, this is from the Webster's Dictionary, by the way, denoting or relating to a person whose sense of personal identity, now get that part, personal identity and gender does not correspond with the birth, sex that they were when they was born. They was either born a boy or they was either born a girl. Now somewhere along the way they got confused about what they actually are. I'd appreciate your attention on this as I speak. As we were talking, the people was talking about the survey that had been done about the suicides. They misquoted that survey. 50% of the people that tried to commit suicide of the males, the teen males, was because they were confused and did not know what to do, because somehow they got confused about their gender. Some older person somewhere had led them down the wrong road and to make them to believe that a boy was a girl or a girl was a boy. That's what happened. That's why they almost committed suicide or did commit suicide. Same thing with the girl and the binaries was 41.8%. That's the suicide rate of transgenders. But I would like to add, I'll get an extra minute, right? For the interruption, I had interruption.
No, sir.
I was interrupted. Was I not?
So that's your problem.
Well, I'll let Lindsay go for just a second. We can't, we're gonna have to wrap it up. Just wrap it up.
Let me wrap it up real quick. Shadrach, there was 3 men in the Bible, Shadrach, and Abednego. By the government, they was demanded that they follow that law. And every time the music played, they would bow down to the king. The music played, they did not bow down to the king. Because they served the Almighty God. They stood to God. And I'm asking you today, don't follow this law, this bad law, and let it be done. And we also want to ask for a roll call vote too, please.
everybody, and please be respectful, and please try to keep it at 3 minutes. I don't want to have to call anybody out or have anybody taken out. This is Russell County, and we want to respect one another.
Madam Chair, members. Members of the board, I'll just speak briefly. I'm glad that we had the last speaker come up and talk about faith, because as a person of faith, I've had some experiences in my life that have really tested that. When I was growing up in elementary school and middle school, I was bullied every single day, and largely for reasons that I couldn't at that time understand. I started out, I should say I'm from Bristol, Virginia, and I went to high school at Honecker, class of 2012. I originally started out in Tazewell County, and it was there when I really entered some of the darkest chapters of my life. I had food thrown in my face almost every day. I was shoved down the stairs, and on multiple occasions, there was one bully in particular that said that I was an embarrassment to my parents. And when I would get to school on Monday morning, they would say that I needed to do my parents a favor and commit suicide. So at the end of 7th grade, it actually ended up that me and my family moved to Russell County. Not because of the bullying, it was just Providence, you could say. And when I got to high school, I met, and I know there'll be some people share different experiences, but I had some of the most incredible, compassionate people in my life who didn't treat me any different because of who I was, and they accepted me for who I was. And while we're on this conversation of faith, I heard the last speaker say that nobody hates anybody. And I think that's what everybody in this room wants to believe, that we don't hate anybody. But now, when I served as a volunteer in rural Kentucky, I worked with several hospice patients, and this was right around the time of the same-sex marriage decision. And I remember one patient in particular on the day that passed. He had been a Christian his whole life, ever since he was 5 years old. And here he was in his 90s, dying from COPD. And when that decision came across the television, he looked at me, and he didn't know anything about me, but he said, we ought to take every single one of them and hang them from the nearest tree. Now, if that isn't hatred, I don't know what is. And that is exactly what we continue to create here in our communities when we refuse to accept others. 1 John chapter 4 verse 20 says, how can you say you love God and hate your brother? If you hate your brother who you have seen, how can you love God whom you have not seen? So I encourage everyone here to love all of our neighbors, all of our LGBT students, and everyone in our communities. Thank you.
Mike Jackson. Josh Etzler. Oh, I got your last name right.
Very good. Good evening. Like you said, I'm Josh Hetzler, legal counsel for the Founding Freedoms Law Center, located at 707 East Franklin Street, Richmond, Virginia. And it was a wonderful 5.5-hour drive out here to Russell. Earlier this year, we filed a lawsuit challenging the Department of Education's model policies for the treatment of transgender students. After the department failed to follow the basic procedures required by law, and because the policies themselves violated various state and federal laws, including infringing upon numerous fundamental rights of students, parents, and teachers. Because of how legally problematic the VDOE's model policies are, not to mention the likelihood of tangible harms that would allow to students' bodily privacy, safety, and dignity in private spaces, and of parental rights, school boards simply cannot adopt policies consistent with the existing model policies. That is why we are recommending to school boards that they take one of two actions. At a minimum, you should take no action on these policies, at least until the legal process comes to a resolution. We have a court hearing on July 21st in Lynchburg Circuit Court for a preliminary injunction to suspend the VDOE model policies until the department goes back and corrects its procedural and legal errors. And we fully expect to prevail in our request. Or alternatively, school boards should implement policies that are indeed more comprehensive than the model policies, as the originating statute permits them to do, by passing common sense policies that actually ensure that all students and teachers are protected and respected, which the VDOE model policies clearly fail to do. The VDOE model policies will harm many students for the sake of a select few, by sacrificing their privacy and safety, compelling their speech, and violating their religious convictions. And that is something that schools cannot afford to do, either ethically or legally. School boards have been put into a difficult position, to be sure. Nevertheless, they must make a choice. They must take action. And the power of that action rests in the authority they've been given as representatives of the people who elected them. We urge you now to put the privacy, safety, dignity, and fundamental liberties of every student, parent, and staff first, and reject any new radical ideology that would, by its very nature, strip them of these critical protections. Thank you.
Todd Gackey.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Dr. Todd Gackey. I am the Director of Government Relations at the Family Foundation, headquartered in Richmond, Virginia. And in June, I was here to urge the board not to adopt the Virginia Department of Education's model policies on the treatment of transgender students. Tonight, I'm back with my colleague, Josh Hetzler, who just spoke to you earlier about the lawsuit and the various violations of the law these model policies pose, to remind you that the Family Foundation advocates for the protection of the hearts and the minds and privacy of all children in public schools. Public policies and school policies must be created in ways that protects the bodily safety of every child, as well as the constitutionally protected free speech of students and teachers, and promotes a respect for parental authority. And as I told you a little over a month ago, the Virginia Department of Education's model policies accomplishes absolutely none of those outcomes. Instead, they create a situation in which someone with bad motives could be violating someone's privacy. Just recently in California, in Los Angeles, a man entered a women's spa and exposed himself to women and children. This is not hypothetical. At the end of the day, regardless of what VDOE provides as guidance, school boards have the primary duty to protect the safety and security of students under their care. The bodily safety and security of students and the ability of parents to protect their children and not have their parental rights violated must be the highest priority. I'll conclude with this. A ranking senior member of the Virginia Senate, Steve Newman of Lynchburg, has issued a public statement urging school boards to just say no to these policies. I thank you for your time. We urge you to do the same.
I pastor Harmony Community Church. I live in Wright, Virginia. I was looking through the policy the other day, pages 11 through 14, talking about the student privacy and confidentiality. And talking about the student identification. And if you look at page 12, the last paragraph, in my word, it refers that it's pretty well telling the parents of these kids, it's none of your business what we teach you. I mean, it is the word that a little 5-year-old boy could go to school and they could teach him he's a girl, give him a girl's name, use girl pronouns, and they don't have to tell the mom and dad that this is going on. Hey, parents? I mean, this is like the state saying, hey, when your kid comes to our school, we own your kid. We're going to teach it what we want to teach it. It's none of your business. And by the way, if you do find out that we're teaching that, we could take you to the Child Protective Services. This is ungodly, evil, wrong, and I urge all of you on this board, do what's right.
Amen.
And if you're not going to do what's right, please resign. I know what's right, but there is no but. I was asked by a board member, what do we do? What do we do with the trans? This is what you do. You teach them the truth. If a little boy comes and he's confused, you tell that little boy he's a boy. You want to get rid of the suicides? Teach that kid the truth. The truth is what makes you free. That little girl that comes that's been taught all her life she's a boy, she needs to be taught the truth. And if we can't find the truth in our public schools, shut them down. Anybody in this room that voted Democrat, and you're here tonight to stand against this, you're the reason we're here. So just do what's right. Do what's right. You know what's right. I would trust that. At least I hope all 7 of y'all know what's right. That's what you do. That's what you do. If you ain't going to do what's right, you ain't going to resign. You ain't got one other choice. And that's do what's wrong. You want to know what's best for the kids? Just do what is right. And thank God. I think it's amazing we started tonight, one nation under God, and then we kicked God out. Well, my time's up. Thank you.
Cody Jackson.
Good evening, members of the board, and thank you for allowing us to speak. My name is Cody Jackson, and I'm also a minister at Harmony Community Church, a lifelong resident of Southwest Virginia, and a current resident of Cleveland, Virginia. I'm here, as many others today, to speak in opposition to the adoption of a model policy for transgender students handed down by the Virginia Department of Education. I felt compelled to speak due to the risk this policy presents for our students' privacy rights, parents' parental rights, as well as the risk to students who identify as transgender. Proponents of this policy would lead you to believe adopting such a policy is what is in the best interest of all students, which is quite simply false, as it can be demonstrated that it is in the best interest of any student. DSM-5 uses the term gender dysphoria, which literally means dissatisfied with one's gender. We are encouraged that the best course of treatment for such an individual is affirmation of their incongruence with reality. This is markedly inconsistent with the way in which other mental issues are treated. For instance, we do not affirm someone who is suffering from anorexia's false belief that they are fat when they are clinically underweight. Yet we are told affirmation is the proper course for gender dysphoria. Tragically, as has been mentioned several times, according to a study by UCLA, transgender individuals attempt suicide at least once in their lifetime by a rate of about 40%. However, rather than counseling, affirmation treatment is pushed in spite of data that is remarkably inconsistent. Most studies showing any benefit at all are usually very poor in design. So much so, in fact, that CMS, under the Obama administration, refused to cover the most radical affirmation treatments, sex reassignment surgery, after a thorough review concluded there was lack of evidence it provided any benefit. The two studies cited in the model policy itself have extremely small sample sizes of 22 and 74 individuals respectively. One of the highest quality studies that we have in the literature is a 30-year study from Sweden, in which those who received sex reassignment surgery were found to still have a suicide rate of 19 times that of the general population. The idea that forced affirmation by society is scientifically proven to be best for these individuals is not evidence-based. In closing, I feel led to remind you of the board of a story of leadership found in the book of Esther. Dealing with an unethical law calling for the extermination of her people, Queen Esther confides to her uncle Mordecai that to make a request to the king without being summoned is at risk to her life. Mordecai lovingly tells her the truth. He both warns and encourages her that she can't escape the effects of this because of her position, and says that who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this. I believe God has placed you where you are for such a time as this. Be sure God and the people of Russell County will hold you accountable for your decisions. But be encouraged that God allowed you to be where you are because He trusts you to do what is right. The time has come to take a stand for truth and do what is right and in the best interest of all of our students. Thank you.
My name is Stephen Music. I reside in Chester Ridge, Virginia, and I am a thankful resident of Russell County. Righteousness exalteth a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. Proverbs 14:34. On behalf of children, young people, parents, grandparents in this beautiful county of Russell, I stand to speak. As I look over time, I see a recurring problem that troubles me. Maybe it does some of you as well. Some 30 years ago, our state chose to endorse playing the lottery. But they used as a selling point something that sounded good: tie the lottery to supporting our schools. Sounds good, but it's not good. There's another word for the lottery. It is gambling. And gambling leads to greed. Build our schools and bless our children through gambling and greed? Then our state took another endorsement: sex education. And if counties are willing to teach it, there will be funding for it. Sounds good, but it's not good. The responsibility of teaching this subject belongs to our fathers and mothers.
That's right.
Not state institutions, not schools, and so on. But I don't want that responsibility, a parent says. Well, we can go with the alternative, not knowing what they're going to be taught.
There you go.
Then it comes to this. The state tells us to allow transgender bathrooms with 27 pages of policies and rules and regulations to completely overwhelm those who have to referee this perversion in our schools. With the same word, if we do this, we will receive extra funding. What are our children worth? Are we going to sell them out? No. Are we going to stand up for our children? And when I say we, I'm not speaking of just me. I'm May I repeat it? Righteousness exalteth a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. Folks, I can't stay for the vote. I'll leave here to go put my 96-year-old daddy to bed. He worked in this county for 32 years, HD Music Junior. And I have not had the heart to tell him what I was doing tonight because it would break his heart.
Well, I got to follow the preachers. Good evening. I'm Amanda Hale, and I appreciate being in your presence again. I live in Lebanon, and I'm a parent. And until you're a parent yourself, you are not experiencing what it means to be drained with 24/7 worry for another human being. I have some tough questions to ask the board today. I know you aren't allowed to answer, but I want you to answer them to yourself. Why did you decide to serve our community as a school board member? When it is time to vote for policy changes, will you be voting on how you would want things for your kids and grandkids? Will your vote match your ethical and belief standards? You are likely entrusted this position based on those things. We are a small community, and we spend time with you at church, the grocery store, community events. So I'm here to stand with you. But I am asking you to not adopt the Virginia Department of Education model policies or any code that references the use of those model policies, as they do not protect a child's bodily privacy or safety and infringes on my parental rights. I'm asking you to put all children first. I'm asking you, the board, to serve the people and not to make yourself or our children servants to the government. I want this to be for all people. I've done a little research. I want you to know that I think you shouldn't adopt anything or vote on anything until you have further information that is more transparent that we as the public get to see too. Thank you and God bless.
Jonathan Miller.
My name is Jonathan Miller. I live in Lebanon. Have a daughter of 5 years old that plans to attend public schools here in Russell County. So as a father and a citizen in Russell County, I'm asking you to stand strong, protect every kid by not adopting the Department of Education's transgender policy. This could directly threaten our kids' physical safety, privacy rights, and the policy forces the schools to allow boys identifying as girls, for instance, to use the girls' restroom, female locker room, and this can be done without notifying the parents. We need to say yes to protecting our kids, no to being forced into adopting sexualized political agendas. As a parent of a young child attending our public schools, I'm deeply concerned about the child's right to expect physical safety and privacy in these vulnerable areas. We hear a lot about transgender rights. We can all agree that every child should be protected from harm. But no one ever talks about the harm done to the young girls or the young men who are not comfortable in these vulnerable areas changing in front of others and so forth. I'm concerned that our schools would have lost from more costly sexual harassment lawsuits or other types of litigation from these situations than what they risk from refusing to adopt the policy. The bottom line is we need to protect our kids. We need to be proactive for our kids' safety and privacy. And it's possible to protect every child in other ways besides adopting the policy.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Porter.
Hopefully I won't need the 3 minutes
comments. I heard a lot of things said tonight before I get into what I actually wrote down. And I've heard people talking about hate and talking about situations in their lives that I really feel. I don't know where you're at. I don't understand what is going on with you. But I also want you to understand that just because we're here tonight, standing against this policy, is not about hate. If God hates you, my prayer is that you can be healed. Now, you may not want to be, you may be, that's your business. But I want to make everyone understand, this is not about hate. It's not about hate. Now, one of the greatest casualties we have in this country today is truth. Truth is a casualty of our society. Everyone says, well, that's your truth, it's not my truth. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone here tonight, there's only one truth. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the Russell County School Board, my name is Cooper Porter, as you said. I'm a graduate of Castlewood High School, finally. My wife is a graduate of Castlewood High School, my son and daughter attended Castlewood High School, graduated. My 3 grandchildren attend schools in Lebanon. 2 are in high school and 1 is in elementary school. I love them with every of my being. I told my daughter I would die for you 1,000 times. I'd die for my grandchildren 10 times. I don't know how she feels about that. My children were involved in many activities and classes with my consent. They were not given as much as an aspirin without my consent. Their actions, good or bad, were not concealed from me. Along with an education, the safety and protection of our children is essential. This should be the #1 goal of our schools and parents. Concealing their actions or the actions of others is directly in conflict with our God-given constitutional rights. Our school system should return to education and not indoctrination. We will teach our children the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. We will all be the better for it. Can we all agree that every child, including the ones struggling with sexual confusion, are important and should be protected also? This goes way beyond protection for promotion of transgenderism. We are born either a male or a female with A or B chromosome. I'll make a deal with you folks. You educate them, we'll raise them as we see fit. We're not here to serve the government's here to serve us. You don't understand that, you should not be on this board or examine the reason you want to be a member of the school board. Ladies and gentlemen, you have a choice to make. Accept or reject. I understand. Finally, if you do the right thing, the good people of Russell County will support you. If you do not, we will not.
Michelle, thanks. Bill Vance. Larry Hughes.
Well, thanks to the board to get on to speak, express my concerns on this sensitive issue of transgender facilities and critical race theory that we need to consider. It's been thrust upon us with supersonic speed that we've been put a stop to. I want to thank the board for your service and for fostering and caring for the needs of the children, the younger citizens you serve. My name is Larry Hughes. I live in Lebanon. I'm a citizen, and I'm a grandparent, and for my children. Now, I have children attending school, or grandchildren attending school here, I take school in here, so I think I have the right to address this forum. I'm going to read from my notes to keep on track and try to control my emotion. Relative to this sensitive policy we deal with, trying to be forced on the children, parents, the families, concerned citizens of this remote village far from the Northern Virginia liberal community. Whatever mindset is different we have. I want to give 1 second, many of the thoughts we've had here, on both sides, has been good and bad. But I want to tell you my thoughts is, I'm expressing this unrealistic and outlandish concern concepts of pushing this notion of impressing young children is wrong. And the philosophy completely goes against everything that was taught with this child, by my parents, and now as a senior adult. To vote on accepting school policy that allows co-mixing of different genders to share the same facilities, be it restrooms, locker rooms, showers, or even common motel rooms with remote field trips is unacceptable to me, and it should be to each of you on the board. I would like to ask each of you to be honest with yourself and listen to a couple of questions I'm going to ask you. As you consider, take it to heart, to your true moral being. Honestly ask yourself this question. I don't expect to answer a response, but I do think you should consider these things. Perhaps I will expand on a couple of answers we'll give these. First question is, if a child has been attacked by a road dog, facing danger, being seriously hurt, would you? What would you do? Everything you can to protect that child. Would you or would you? Would you allow the child to be mauled? I suggest no, you would not. Rather, you would run to the rescue of the child, even an adult. What if one of our school buildings has severe structural issues, building that could possibly end the child being injured or even seriously hurt or worse? What would you do to the school board? You as a school member, board member, I ask you this. Here again, let me tender my suggestion your answer. You would take all necessary steps with your power and authority to eliminate this hazard. Oh yes. Yes, 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 you would in fact. Now, in fact, just recently you did that just. Lebanon Elementary School had some serious problems. You repaired them because you knew the children were at risk, and you did what you needed to do. Now, this brings me to another critical question. What would you do to protect the physical well-being and the mental health of our and your children? Will you turn your cold shoulder and a blind eye to the three dangers exposed, the potential dangers exposed and injured to the most vulnerable, your citizens, young children? Look at the responsibility. Could the child experience a personal or physical attack by having commingled gender in the restrooms, or locker rooms, or other places? I suggest they would. This child is facing quite possibly sexual assault. He would equate this to mental and physical health. Their choice is the utmost important. They're critical to the health and well-being of the children. Why is this a matter? Because we got a lot of people, young kids, creating suicide. Right now, somewhere in 2017, 6,200 people committed suicide. And again, it goes on and on again. I ask you, is it won't know because you have a right. You would protect your children, but no. One last thing, I'm gone. Quote, King James Version, James 4:17. Therefore, to him that knows the good and does not, gives his hand.
My name is Stephen Demmer, and I'm pastor at First Clarks Valley Church of Jesus Christ of Source Creek. And at the last meeting I was at, someone here in the room brought out that I had sinned on the Lord, and I did. I backslid on God in 2009, but God forgave me for my sins just like He can to anyone else. And I found Him to be a God that will. And as we was earlier listening to people talk, I don't agree with the name calling in schools, none whatsoever. That's not Christian. And any Christian that finds himself doing that, you need to praise us. We serve an almighty God who loves one and all. And He created us each and every one. In Genesis chapter 5 and verse 2, it says, male and female created He them. And the Bible goes on to tell us, it says, for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife. We are supposed to marry either a man or a woman, not a man or a man, and raise our child to believe there's something other than what they are born. We believe in one God. We believe He's faithful over all, and we'll all stand before Him. And it seems like everybody wants to get out and teach this and teach that, and everybody wants to get away from God and say that God don't belong in schools. The reason our country's like it is now because we took God out of schools. We need Jesus Christ in our schools more than we need school in our school. Amen. And the LGBTQ, I don't know a whole lot about it, but I know a lot about JESUS. And He loves each and every one of us. He's the giver of life, and we'll all stand before Him. And the LGBTQ wants everybody to think that you matter, and they want you to be indoctrinated that Christians hate everybody. I want to tell you about a man called Jesus Christ. He'll lead you in the way of truth, amen, amen, and He will teach you the right way. And He said, come unto me, all ye that labor and heavy laden. He said, I'll give you rest. You ain't going to find rest in no organization. You're going to find it in indoctrination of Jesus Christ. Amen. I'm glad He's the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. We might change, but He'll never change. He's the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. And I'm glad we serve Him. Amen. I'm glad that God came to me when there was no one else around, and He can come to you just the same as He come to me. He took me in when nobody else would. He brought me out of the desert and set my feet in a family, and now I belong to the risen family of Jesus Christ on my way to heaven, and heaven will be my home. In closing, we didn't say a word. We expected everybody to bow down and take it whenever we took prayer out of school. Don't worry about your children. Amen. And now here we're doing it again. Don't worry about your children. I mean, I'm concerned about my children.
Thank you, Lord.
My name is Tara Dye. I'm here tonight in favor of education, not indoctrination. We need to have schools that reflect our community values and not what the state thinks our community should be. We as parents have rights. The Virginia Parental Rights Statute states, a parent has a fundamental right to make decisions concerning the upbringing, education, and care of their child or children. The school system is not the parent, nor the co-parent to these children. Parents are to teach their children about their chosen religion, race, morals, social beliefs, and values, not the school system. This policy requires schools to deceive parents, stating that students need to be respected if they don't want their parents to know that they are transgender. The school is to respect their choice by embracing their new identity and never mention it to the parents. This is encouraging kids to be deceitful and hide things from their parents. Anyone encouraging a child to hide something from their parents or to be less than truthful with their parents is no one that should be around children. Speaks of and cites with references how depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, as well as drug and alcohol abuse is higher amongst LGBTQ students. Wouldn't this prove that parents need to be made aware if their child is dealing with gender confusion? If the parent doesn't know what is going on, how can they help their child? This leaves the child more vulnerable. Parental alienation is never the answer. Haven't we seen enough consequences of not catching depression and anxiety issues early in kids? Critical race theory encourages everyone to see race first, placing anyone you meet in categories of oppressed and oppressor. Everything then becomes a race and power struggle, keeping minority children in the victim mindset and white children in the guilt mindset. CRT rejects responsibility and individual freedom for group identity politics. It pits people against each other instead of bringing them together. It claims to be the solution to racism, but is instead nothing but racism. It goes directly against the teachings of MLK. MLK dreamed of a nation where people would not be judged on the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. These policies are not anti-discriminatory. They force other students, as well as teachers, to accept that is what is in the policy and ignore their own beliefs and religious convictions. They are disguised as tolerance, but if you have any views that differ, then you are deemed wrong. That is the exact opposite of tolerance. Some of the other counties in the state have snuck this by passing code sections in with their policies. Don't tell us that you are just adding a code section to anything. We want to know what the code section is tied to. The time for condescending tones and deceitful words is over. Parents demand transparency. Both critical race theory and transgender model policy push a political agenda that goes against many parents' belief systems and goes against the parental rights statute of Virginia. These policies target children for political manipulation, and it is not acceptable. I'm asking the board tonight to stand with your constituents who overwhelmingly disagree with these policies.
Okay, has the board had an opportunity to look at the bills and the accounts? I need a motion that we approve the bills.
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sakawicha. All in favor of paying the bills? Aye.
Madam Chair, the next item we have is approval of resignations and retirements. We have a short list there. Caleb, you click on the attachment there, Caleb. Thank you.
Okay. Need a
I'll make a motion.
thank you, Mr. Gibson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Do we have all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next item is approval of personnel for the 21-22 school year. Again, lengthy list that Mr. Fletcher and Matt the clerk have been working on, but if you just thumb down through that, Caleb, if you would, that needs to be approved, Madam Chair, for the FY22 school year.
I need a motion that we approve our personnel.
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion to approve all our personnel for the 2021-2022 school year.
Thank you, Mr. Sakawicha. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Madam Chair, the fourth item for board's consideration, approval of new personnel transfers. Again, a list for the board's consideration.
Do we have a motion to approve the personnel and transfers?
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
I need a second. Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Do we have a second? Thank you, Ms. Garrett. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
All right, Madam Chair, the fifth item, final item in this section deals with approval of coaching assignments for FY '22. Our 3 high schools have submitted those for the board's consideration tonight.
Do we have a motion that we approve our coaching assignments?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bostic. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sacagawea. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Madam Chair, that brings us to the action items. Second reading, approval of policy.
In the last meeting, my understanding, we rejected the field Department of Education's transgender policy and asked Ms. Patton to come up with something or to research it. Please give us an update.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Gibson. At the June 3rd regular board meeting, the board asked me to look into drafting a policy specific for Russell County. And in that process, I have researched federal law and Virginia state law. I've consulted with other legal counsels for local school boards in their area, and I also consulted with Mr. Hessler, who spoke with the, I want to say this right, Founding Freedoms Law Center. And the report I have for the board, and I do have a recommendation at the end of it. In all of this, I've reviewed everything that's out there so the board can have as much information as possible to make a decision on how the board wishes to proceed. One of the things I did is I did look at other boards in our area to see what they were doing. Seven boards passed the VSBA policies. 2 boards had elected to go with their own policy. And as we stand today, there are, I'll just name them because I'm not sure I had the exact number in my head, Tazewell, Grayson, Madison County, and Franklin County at this point have decided that they have existing policies in place that already take care of the issues that have been brought to all school boards' attention in 22.1, 23.3. I want to start specifically with the Department of Education policies and my legal analysis of those as they have been presented to you. As legal counsel, I do have very significant, legitimate constitutional concerns with the way that those are written, and it would be my advice that the board does not adopt those as written and expressly reject those. When it came time to craft a policy, I started looking at existing policy to see what we have. And my advice to the school board is that you already have policies in place which do protect all students and protect and comply with all Virginia and federal law. And I do have a recommendation, a resolution for the board to pass. It is not a policy update. It's not a new policy. It's a resolution that we are already in compliance with the law, and I would like to read that for the board's consideration at this time. And I did collaborate with the Founding Freedoms Law Center in this, and so they were a part of some of the information that I got that I put in this resolution. Whereas Virginia Code 22.1-23.3 directed the Virginia Department of Education to propose policies to address common issues regarding transgender students for 8 specific categories, and whereas VDOE issued in March 2021 its model policies for the treatment of transgender students in Virginia's public schools, and whereas Virginia Code 22.1-23.3b directs each Virginia school board to adopt policies that are consistent with but may be more comprehensive than model policies developed by the Department of Education. And whereas the Russell County School Board is consistent with the Virginia Department of Education and committed to ensuring a positive, safe, and nurturing learning environment for all students, and whereas the Russell County School Board also committed to ensuring the civil rights of parents, teachers, staff, and students, and whereas a comprehensive policy regarding transgender students as directed by Virginia Code 22.1-23.3 must consider and protect the rights of parents, teachers, staff, and other students, as well as the applicable requirements of federal and Virginia law. And whereas Virginia Code Section 1-240.1 states a parent has a fundamental right to make decisions concerning the upbringing, education, and care of the parent's child. And whereas both the United States Supreme Court in Meyer versus Nebraska, 262 U.S. 390, 399, 401, 1923, and Troxel v. Granville, 530 U.S. 57, 65 through 66, 2000, and Virginia Supreme Court, LFB Brake, 285, Virginia, 163, 182, 2013, have held that parents have a fundamental right to decide the upbringing, education, and care of their child. And whereas both the United States Constitution, First Amendment, and the Virginia Constitution, Article 1, Sections 12 and 16, as well as the Virginia Religious Freedom Restoration Act, Virginia Code Section 57, 2.02b, protect the free speech and freedom of religion rights for the Russell County Public Schools, teachers, students, and staff. And whereas the United States Constitution, 14th Amendment, ensures that due process and equal protection of laws for all students in Russell County. Whereas the Russell County School Board has thoroughly reviewed model policies drafted by the Virginia Department of Education and has found that those policies to have legitimate constitutional issues. And whereas the Russell County School Board does not support violating the constitutional rights of any parent, teacher, staff member, or student. And whereas the Russell County School Board currently has in place appropriate policies to comply with all Virginia and federal laws, including Virginia Code Section 22.1-23.3, now therefore, the Russell County School Board affirms that the school board is in compliance with all Virginia and federal laws, including Virginia Code 22.1-23.3, and be it further resolved, expressly reject the model policies drafted by the Virginia Department of Education. Legitimate constitutional issues do not adequately address the practical implementation of such policies in the school system and would put the school board in the position of potentially violating multiple constitutional rights of students, parents, and employees.
Everybody said amen. Just so we're clear, we are rejecting the model.
You would be rejecting the Virginia Department of Education's model policies, and that's what you are expressly rejecting. And you already have, and that's my opinion based upon the constitutional issues that are raised by some of the provisions in those policies that are written.
That's what you say.
You've got it there for also the Virginia School Board Association updates. We're not updating them.
We're not updating any policies. We, in my review of our policies, we already have policies that make you in compliance with law. And so we're just affirming that we are in compliance with the law, and we're not updating or adding any new additional policies.
I make a motion that we approve this resolution. Second.
I have a motion made by Mr. Falk, a second by Mr. Gibson, that we adopt this board resolution. Russell County Schools has been in compliance, bullying, harassing. To my attention, we try to treat all students, try to give them the best education possible, Russell County Schools is in the business of education.
Amen.
And we're in the business of trying to keep every child safe while they're at school. It has not been brought to this board's attention that that is not a happen. And if you have problems, you report it to your principals. We have means to go through, and it goes through your principals, your teachers, it goes to Dr. Brown. If that can get resolved, it needs to come to this board. Our duty and our job is to protect all students. Anything else you need to say, Dr. Brown? Ms. Patton? I'll need a roll call vote from our board, and I'll start with Mr. Sacagawea.
Yes.
Mr. Boston.
Yes.
Mr. Bob.
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Mr. Parsons. And Ms. Garrett.
Yes.
And myself proudly, yes.
I would personally like to thank Ms. Patton for all the hard work. We'd like to thank all of y'all also.
That's
I'd like for Dr. Brown to elaborate on Russell County Schools policy on the critical race theory.
Yes, please.
Okay. In regards to critical race theory, over the pandemic, one of the things we've done is had many. Okay. Over the past 18 months during the pandemic, we've had weekly discussions with the state superintendent, and during that process, we've been able to, again, create a pretty close relationship to the point that he even allows superintendents to have his cell phone. We call him weekends and evenings and so forth, and he's really good to work with in regards to that. So I called Dr. Lane about a month ago, and I said, help me understand the critical race theory concept. And he said at that point in time, and to this day, that the critical race theory is not is not approved at the state level. It's not in any curriculum in the state of Virginia. Okay, any history classes, science classes, English, what have you, the critical race concept is not in any curriculum that is provided by the state of Virginia. Well, we adopt the curriculum as provided by the state of Virginia. Therefore, in Russell County, we do not have critical race theory as a component of our curriculum. It is a local decision, and local school boards can recommend such. But, my perception is that this board has no interest in it, nor do I. So, to help clarify, again, just to help clarify, again, there's a lot of misinformation. I had some great conversations with some of you over the last couple of days, and I appreciate you reaching out to me. Sometimes you get frustrated. Listen, folks, you can call me anytime, and if I can't get back with you at that moment, I promise I will get back to you within, the next 24 hours, okay? But I had some great conversations yesterday, spoke to 2 individuals for a grand total of about 2 hours, and cleared up a lot of misinformation, okay? But when it comes to critical race theory, it is not defined, adopted at the state level. We adopt the state curriculum. Therefore, we do not have it as part of any of our curriculum in Russell County. It is a local decision, the school boards can add it, but again, at this point, I don't believe they have an interest nor I. Okay? So, hopefully that clears that up.
In regards to that, Madam Chair, I move to certify that Russell County Public Schools does not include critical race theory in our curriculum or standards of learning for the academic year 2021-2022. Russell County Public Schools have no plans to include critical race theory in our curriculum or standards of learning in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. I need a second. Thank you, Mr. Ball. We have a motion and a second that Russell County Public Schools does not include critical race theory in our curriculum. We'll take a poll vote. Mr. Sakowicz.
I agree, yes.
Mr. Bostic.
Yes.
Mr. Ball.
Yes.
And Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Mr. Parsons.
Yes.
And Ms. Garrett. And myself, yes. Dr. Brown, that takes us down, I guess, to our Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV.
Well, actually, Madam Chair, yeah, there's,
Oh,
prior to
okay.
that, the first item I had was approval of policies as presented. With that being said, we still have other policies above and beyond the ones that we've been speaking of. So I ask board's approval to ask the board to approve the policies as presented with the exception of those aforementioned policies AC, AD, AE, CH, GCL, IA, AG, IJB, IJ, JFC, JFHA/GBA, and JOA are traditional type policies. We need
These
those
are our
approved.
traditional policies, and this is our second reading. And I will need a motion and second to approve these. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Bostic. Do we have a second?
I just want to clarify the policies that we're going to be exceptional are the ones that have in the 22.1.
There's no reference to those.
There's no reference.
There's no reference.
The ones that are approved do not have any reference.
That is correct, Mr. Gibson.
And I'll second.
We have a motion and we have a second to approve the second reading of the policies. All in favor? Or we can take a poll vote. Mr. Sakowicz?
Yes.
Mr. Bostic?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Parsons?
Yes.
And Ms. Garrett? And myself, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next item we have is approval of our title programming. Ms. Rita Street does a tremendous job with the professional development training, application, monitoring, and so forth of these programs. This is a required annual approval. And I have went and broken down the monies that we're speaking of when it comes to our title programming being federal money. With that being said, you see that we have about $1.5 million worth of title funds altogether. That being said, Madam Chair, we need the board to approve such submitted these. After approval, we'll amend the applications to indicate the board's approval.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Do I have a motion from a board member that we... Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Garrett. This is motion made and seconded to approve Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV applications for Russell County Schools. All in favor? Aye.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If I can, before they leave, I want to thank, just to ask for Todd Gackey, the rest of the Family Foundation, organization for working to help us, for making these trips.
Excuse me, please give respect to the board. This may be a little boring to you, but it is definitely business that we need to take care of. And please let Mr. Gibson address the crowd.
I was just thanking the Family Foundation, the legal council, for making 2 trips to Russell County from Richmond to address us about serious concerns we had. Plus, we will be following your legal action.
I know everybody's been in here probably since 5 o'clock or whatever, sitting and maybe getting tired, so if you want to stand up, stretch or something for about 10 minutes and we'll get finished. Thank you for coming.
Stay around.
Action item, Madam Chair, number 3, recommendation for employee A to go from being on administrative leave with pay to administrative leave without pay until resolution of that employee's issue.
Okay, we have a motion that.
So good, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Do we have a second? Second. Second, Ms. Garrett. All in favor? Aye.
All right, Madam Chair, information items. We have our coronavirus update. Hopefully this might be our last one. I can't swear to that, but again, things are improving. We do have, since our last meeting, the end of the emergency declaration, state of emergency in Virginia. Also, the timetable on Executive Order 79, that was extinguished as well. The only thing we have in place right now is a order from the Commissioner of Health, Dr. Oliver, to state level. He does have the mask mandate for inside public schools. That actually expires on the 25th, which is on a Sunday. So for our students, the 23rd, which will be next Friday. So a week from tomorrow, all orders that are in place will expire. Again, the Zoom conversation that we had with the state superintendent on Tuesday, he shared that at this point in time, there is no expectation of mitigation plan requirements for public schools in the state of Virginia for the FY22 school year, again, at this time. So keep our fingers crossed and, move forward, but next Friday will be the end of any executive order or order from the, actually the Health Commission.
So no mask, no social distancing after that.
No.
Unless they do something else.
Right, unless the conditions worsen. The information we received from CDC right now recommends things like 3-foot social distancing. That's not an issue for us. Again, we're back to hosting events that have 500 people.
Without masks.
Without masks. Madam Chair, that's it from the coronavirus update at this time.
Our sales tax for the month of June was $456,870.96. Dr. Brown, board had an opportunity to look at maintenance and expenditures. Future agenda, Dr. Brown?
Madam Chair, we'll have some recognitions for our next board meeting. Again, we moved those things we had planned for tonight to the August board meeting. In regards to this, a little, I guess premature, but in regards to our next board meeting, Madam Chair, since we had to move this board meeting 2 weeks, I'd recommend moving to 1 week for August to get us back on cycle. So I believe that's August the 7th. Oh, no, I'm sorry, August the 12th. It has to be a week, I'm sorry.
Okay.
August the 12th.
Okay, August the 12th at 5 o'clock.
Yes.
Okay, Dr. Brown, we're ready for delegations that's not on the agenda. Anyone would like to speak? You'll have 3 minutes. Please state your name and where you're from.
My name is, okay, my time starts now. All right, my name is Nathan Kaiser. I am a resident of Lebanon, and I understand that the policies or the policy that we have currently adopts or encompasses what we need with state law, according to Katie. My issue is the state law actually says that students participating in in sex-specific school activities and events and using school and use of school facilities. So we've got to accommodate for transgender according to the state law, not the policies that from the VDOE or the board. Katie is, I think, saying that our policies currently are broad enough to encompass this. My curiosity is killing me here. How in the world are we going to accommodate sex-specific facilities for transgenders? Because it sounds like to me it's exactly the same as what we're all in here tonight for. Sounds exactly the same. And I applaud you all for taking a stand, not adopting the VDOE and the other boards' codes, because they were, as to Katie's point, they were atrocious, very likely violating constitutional rights. But at the same token, I know we got the best we could get probably, but it's not good enough. It's just not good enough. From what everybody said in here that believes in Christ, believes in God, and believes in having values, it's not good enough. It's just not good enough. And I don't want anybody to be mistaken. What we did here was not a victory. You already lost. The state law is the law, and it says specifically that schools must accommodate transgenders in sex-specific school facilities. So it's not even a partial win. It's a half loss of really what it is. I said to somebody when I came in here, I said, I felt like I'm going to a funeral today. Our country is corrupted by progressivism, and this is just another example of it. And really the only answer is when we, the people, stand up and we pull our kids out of these progressive infected schools and we start homeschooling and private schooling and doing our due diligence to make sure we're providing the best we can for our children. Because God's not coming back into schools. They're never going to allow that. This is one little step, and then they're going to keep on to the next step, and the next step, and the next step. Just wait. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Funeral, y'all. Funeral. In the freaking America.
Sorry, I just wanted to publicly thank you all. I want to thank the board. I want to thank Dr. Brown, Katie, Mr. Fletcher, the Family Foundation, the Founding Freedoms Law Center, the community, the churches, and all the people who spoke out today. I appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you. If you don't mind, your name and where you're from.
My name is Farron Salyers II, and I'm from Rosedale, Virginia. When I grew up, my father taught me that it was okay to lust after women. And my uncle taught me that it was okay to get drunk. And my uncle also taught me that it was good to be on drugs, that it was fun, that it was a good thing. I'm not necessarily just addressing the board. I am addressing that our men need to start standing up and being men and teaching their kids that to lust after women is wrong, and to, as they said before, to look up women's skirts, and I'm not trying to be vulgar. I'm just saying there is moral truth. There is, as it said, that truth is relative. See, I don't agree with that, because every time we get in our vehicle, we throw that logic out the window. You know, even the most progressive people have to use logic when they're driving on the road, because as a car's coming down the road, if they use their logic and they say, well, my truth is there is no car coming down the road, when they pull out, they're going to get hit. Every time we get in a vehicle, we have to use logic. There is truth, and the truth is there is a vehicle coming, so you have to stop. You know, and the truth is, as people, as a school board, as men, you know, and I'm calling men to stand up and to be there for their families. You know, I hate that they're not here to see this, but focus on the family side of the study, that over 90% of gay men grew up without a father in the home. The mother raised them. And over 90% of gay women grew up without a mother in the home. They were raised by the father. The problem is our families are messed up. We've messed up what God ordained. There should be a man and a woman. You know, my parents taught me that divorce was a necessary evil. You know, and when we mess with what God has ordained, we have problems. And it visits our children and our children's children and their children's children, because it messes them up. It messes up our kids when our parents aren't doing what they're called to do, and when our leaders aren't doing what they're called to do. And thank you for, you know, I don't envy your job. I don't want it. I appreciate it. But I do want to stand for truth. And I'm thankful that you guys stand for truth. And I encourage you to. And the truth is that there are consequences to ideas. People are equal and ideas are not. You know, we can lay all of our ideas on the table. It doesn't mean we need to berate each other over how we look or whatever else. But, you know, ideas are separated out, and what works, works, and what doesn't, doesn't. So.
Hello, my name is Rachel Higgs. I'm from Homeacre. So first off, I wanted to be able to speak a little bit about the fact that we do have so many issues going on in schools. And so many times, whenever I was a therapist in the school system, I've worked with kids a very long time, ran a boys' home. It comes down to so much bullying. Kids are so wrapped up in their coursework. We push so much coursework on these kids. They don't know how to socialize. They do not have physical activities hardly at all. They get one gym class maybe a week, sometimes two. They rarely get outside playtime. Our kids don't know how to socialize because that's being taken away because we are pushing so many different agendas on them of different facts that they have to try to remember. I cannot tell you half of anything that I learned in calculus. I can't tell you half of the things that I learned in research psychology, even though I did psychology in college. But I knew how to socialize because we had different activities back then. The only socializations that we get is from our teachers and our educators. People that our kids are looking up to. I cannot tell you how many times that my daughter has come home stating that her teacher basically is pushing liberal agenda on her. They are hired for a reason, and that is to teach facts. It's not to push any political views. And it should not even be considered in a school system as a way to sway children. Kids need to be brought up in whatever home their parents are supposed to determine. I do have beliefs in God. I do have Christian values. I was bullied whenever I was a kid for the most ridiculous things. I'm still bullied today. People say horrible slanderous things, make up horrible slanderous accusations because people don't understand the consequences of their actions and what they say. Did you know that women, National Women's Equality Day is on the same day as National Dog Day. Do you know which one got most recognition? Dogs. Yeah. We were able to get the right to vote, but here's my dog. People don't know how to socialize. This is still a good old boy system. We are a very small rural town. But I encourage you, look into more physical activities, more counseling, more cognitive behavioral techniques in the school systems, and keep the politics out of it. Our kids need to socialize. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be brief. Jody Shelton from Squirrel Creek, Virginia. Just a few minutes ago, I felt like I won. Now I'm not so sure. Coming up through, I shook every one of your hands. I felt like we've done something really great. After the first gentleman spoke, now I'm not really sure. I know this is not answering question time, but I'm hoping at some point, I'm not sure what Katie's last name is, I hate to call her Katie, but I hope maybe she'll have a brief moment at Miss Patton. I hope Miss Patton may have a minute to maybe speak on what was said to kind of clarify that. So I'll leave here knowing if I won or if I was hornswoggled. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is not for the board, this is for Dr. Brown. Dr. Brown, I feel just like Jody, in my name's Patton Brown from Homemaker. As a substitute teacher, with what Nate said, if I see a boy going into the girls' bathroom, am I supposed to stop him or am I supposed to let him go in?
Supposed to stop. But if you'd like to talk about this, give me a call so we can talk.
Well,
Okay, no, this isn't the place
I want to know.
to talk about it. Okay? You're here to speak to the board members, not me.
My name is Sandy Hess, I'm from Swarth Creek. I know a lot of you personally, and first of all, I'd like to thank you so much for the job you did tonight. I know tonight had to be horrific for you, and we really appreciate the courage that you had to come out and stand. But I myself, like the others do, if this is not a place that we can, because I've never spoken to a school board meeting, so I don't know. If this is not a question and answer time, is there a way that we can get a list of questions? Because to be honest, I don't know what the state policy allows and what it doesn't. So I would like to know if we can submit a list of questions that we want clarification on from the board. I mean, I have the model policy, I read the model policy. I understand what stuff is being added to the policy. Excuse me. And I am glad that the board chose not to adopt that model policy. I appreciate that. And the way our schools have been run, apparently there's not that much of a problem with this until the model policy came down. So I want to be reassured that what the policy that's in place right now that we are going to have to go by, meets the standards that it needs to be. So is that a way that we can submit a list of questions to get clarification on?
Sure.
I mean, I can read legal jargon all day. I want plain.
I spent 2 hours yesterday speaking to 2 people. They called me, had a great conversation, answered their questions. I spoke to another lady the day before I came over, about 20 minutes, and answered her questions. And as Katie will share, in these meetings, it's one directional. You share your concerns with the board,
right,
and then they may direct Katie or need to do something.
And that's my question. How do we submit a list of questions that we need clarified?
You can email me, you can call me if you have the questions readily available.
Okay.
Any of that's fine. And again, as I shared earlier, I'll try to answer your questions and talk to you at that very moment,
right,
if I can.
Right.
But if not,
I'd like to have it in a way for
everybody
everybody to get some clarification on it, because if we don't know apparently, we don't know what's in any of this state stuff, or it would have never got passed to start with. But we sat back and now it is, and now it's the law. And so I want to know what this actually protects. I want to know that nothing else, I want to get clarification that there's not already stuff in there that is going to be harmful, or are we really just handling it like the way I believe we are? My child starts 8th grade high school this year, and I want to know that everything is being handled in a safe manner. I've not heard of any incidences. My oldest was 27. He went through school, no problems. I want to make sure that the stuff that's in there now is nothing that we have to be concerned with, and that it is being handled the way it should be. I don't think that's unreasonable to do that. So if I get questions from everyone, then I could email them to you, or how?
Well, I would prefer that you share with me your questions, okay? But, it's not fair to you to be a conduit. I mean, really, anyone can call me anytime. Elijah was here a few minutes ago. You asked Elijah. We spoke yesterday for 45 minutes. Amanda Hale, I don't know if you both here or not. Amanda, we spoke for an hour and 10 minutes yesterday. Donna Deal called me earlier today, 20 minutes with Donna.
I think it'd be more productive if we had yeah, that way you don't have to relay the message to 40 people. If we have all of our questions, they can be answered.
Absolutely. Send it to me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Summer Miller, a student at HHS, and as a student, I was very concerned, and I just feel like there needs to be more mental help for students in need. I've heard many of my friends talk about killing themselves. I myself have thought about it multiple times, and I just feel like there needs to be more mental awareness and help provided in the school system.
Yes.
Madam Chair, just a brief moment. I think we just heard a very personal moment there. And I think that goes to show exactly the stress that many of the children in our schools are under these days. And I'm so thankful that y'all have said no to some policies that may have created some more challenges for schools, for administrators, for teachers, because our children do need our help. They need adults to stand up. And I think that the resolution that was passed today says no to some policies that may have caused problems. I understand there's existing policies, and if there are challenges, then you can work through those. If there's deficiencies in certain areas. But I think today is a good day for Russell County and for the parents and the citizens today, because a bold move was made to say, we believe in our ability to pass policies that are good for the people of Russell County. And we don't need Richmond's policies. We can do it ourselves. And so I'm almost at a loss for words. So I'm very appreciative of the time that you allow for us to come here and speak, and for the gracious people of Russell County. So thank you for your time.
My name is Wayne Hubbard. I'm from the Source Creek area as well. I'd like to personally thank each and every one of you all. Kip especially, attentively listened to my concerns, and I appreciate it. He was genuine concern and genuine heartfelt, and I thank you for that, brother. And I'd like to thank these two gentlemen that came down from Richmond as well. I remember seeing the one gentleman at his last school board meeting. Thank you to all the parents that came out, the pastors. We do intend to continue to meet as a group of Christians and pastors. Lynn, myself, Lynn has headed it up. We discussed it with the pastors. He did, actually. We're going to continue to meet, and we're going to continue to stay involved. And we are going to educate ourselves further on the existing current policy of the Russell County School Board. But thank you for your stand today. It means a lot to all the citizens. and we're behind you. And we're more involved now than ever, and I feel that we're going to be folks that are going to stay more involved as we educate ourselves, as Sandy was talking about. We need to know more about the existing policy so that we can look at that policy and we can decide and we can determine if it's something we need to bring to you guys as concerned parents or citizens and say, hey, let's look at this particular element of the policy and do we need to make changes. So we're going to stay involved, but thank y'all again so much, and thank the Lord. Jesus Christ above.
Amen.
Do we have anyone else that would want to address the board this evening?
Madam Chair, Board, we do greatly appreciate. I'm Pastor James Nunley, Cedar Point Baptist Church here in Lebanon. I appreciate your time and effort. I know this has not been an easy evening in any aspect or many weeks leading up to this, but I do appreciate your attentiveness to it. I want to take a special moment here, though, to thank our County Sheriff's Office, our local town police force. They go unnoticed. As well as our educators at all levels. I appreciate what you do. It's not an easy job. I appreciate you being willing to have conversations. So, that means the world to us, and to be willing to hear us out. And I pray that nothing's been misrepresented here tonight from any point of view. We do have difference of opinions, and we're entitled to those. But as this brother said, we need to stand on truth. And I appreciate the fact that you tried the best you can, what we've done tonight, and look forward to seeing how we address that going forward with you. And we are behind you. We really do mean that. We're here and we want to help. We want to be a support, and we appreciate you hearing us out. Yes, sir.
Is there anyone else that needs to address the board tonight? And the board would definitely want to appreciate Mr. Steve Dye, our sheriff, and all of his fine deputies. And we really don't appreciate the job that they go to every day.
That's right. Yes.
Anyone else who would like to address the board? Feel free to come forward. Okay, does any board member have anything they would like to say? Everyone from the audience is finished.
I don't think I would say, I'm proud of you all. Stand up. Stand up. We've got a lot of work to do, and there'll be a lot of tweaking to do. But we're going to get through this. I've got God's hands, and we're going to get through it. And the young lady that's hurting so bad right there, if I could, after a meeting, I would love to speak to you all about something, because I went through what she's doing myself, especially with the child. And I know how it hurts everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Bostic. Does anyone else have anything as a board member?
I'd like to thank each and every one of you for coming out. We're proud of you. And we're glad that we gave you support. If you have any problems or anything, we're in touch with you.
I'd like to thank y'all too, and you'll get behind us, rallying with us, and trying to take care of this, make sure everybody's safe and everybody taken care of. Appreciate y'all so much.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yes.
like to recognize them out of 132 counties in the state of Virginia, when we were able to get, before COVID and all this confusion, all this epidemic, we were getting true testing, Dr. Brown. We rated number 12.
12 in the state.
12 in the state, and that is because wow. And that speaks to our teachers and our employees that go out there every day. I don't care what you do. If you drive the bus, if you're a cafeteria employee, if you keep the school clean, whatever you do, you're contributing to that 12th in the state. And I am proud of each and every one of them. Yes.
Madam Chair, maybe to address Mr. Bowers with Mr. Shelton's concern. It's my understanding that we didn't change, anything that a boy cannot go in the rural bathroom once a month.
Praise the Lord.
That's my understanding. And this resolution is just take this free speech and religious freedom rights for Russell County Public School teachers, students, and staff, which will include, in my opinion, the pronoun issue.
That's right.
And all that, that should not change. It should not be forced upon anyone. That's my understanding of what we passed tonight. And this may rear its head again. I think a lot of people on November.
Yes.
You're ready to see what happens.
Right.
One other thing, if I may, Madam Chair.
Yes.
All you guys have told me that y'all are behind us and you're going to support us with money, you may be called.
I'd like to say that, I agree with you. It seems like a victory, but it's not over.
No.
Don't nobody think that it's over.
Right.
We may dodge the bullet, but there's still a fight.
Right. Got to keep fighting.
We as a community need to stand up.
That's exactly right.
And I think the fight's not here in Russell County. The fight's in Richmond.
Right. Election day.
Don't think that, we didn't hear you or anything like that. We did. And, we appreciate you, but it's not over. Don't think it is.
It's gonna start somewhere. We appreciate it. Y'all had to help us.
Yeah. Stay involved.
Is it or if I say something, or is it already closed?
It'll be fine.
I think just like the little sister back here, not only do they need men on emotion, but our school needs somebody in there to help them spiritually. That's so. I don't know I don't know if there's anything the school can do. I don't know, but that's something we really need to look at. Really need to look at.
Since we are moving the board meeting from normal time, we'll need a motion that we meet on August the 12th. Okay, thank you, Mr. Gibson, and I'll need a second. Thank you, Mr. Parsons, and all in favor of meeting date of August the 12th at 5 o'clock.
So moved.
Okay.
So moved on.
You have anything else, Dr. Green?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. Make a motion that,
I make a motion to adjourn.
thank you, and a second. Thank you, Mr. Ball, all in favor? Aye.